Why aren't British estate agents buyer agents? Today I'm joined by Ugo Arinzeh, who is both a buyer and an estate agent, buyer agency, in prime central London. And she's here to tell me why she thinks more UK estate agents should be buyers agents. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
And obviously with that accent, you're from America. In America, there's both buyer agents and seller agents. You came to the UK in 2012 and it blew your mind that no one was a buyer's agent.
Not heavily, yeah, no. I thought that there was such a gap in the market and a real opportunity because buyers should be looked after as we're used to in the States, absolutely.
Why do you think there aren't buyers agents in the UK? I mean, I know I can probably name 2 or 3 in London Prime Central, but do you think they should be everywhere?
I definitely think they should be everywhere because when you think about it, people are buying the most expensive asset of their life and they're kind of left to do it on their own. And so nobody's looking after them. And in the States, agents are licensed, and there's a real fiduciary responsibility to look after your client. And so for me, I just feel like there's a huge conflict of interest, the fact that buyers are actually trying to negotiate with a estate agent who works for the seller.
We've all heard of stories where one estate agent has picked up just like one client to "would you act for me," and they're kind of making it up as they go along. What does good buyer agency look like?
Yeah, I think it's about really understanding the client and spending that time to understand what that purchase means to them, whether it's driven by extreme, personal circumstances, childbirth, new baby, downsizing, divorce, what have you. But keeping that point in mind, because I think that sensitivity is part of that relationship building and understanding it is a relationship. Somebody's really entrusting you during this critical chapter of their life. So it's understanding that, it's helping them also get clarity. And one of the things we've come up with is, 15 points as to why somebody should use a buying agent. But it's sometimes, especially when we work with Americans, if you're coming from any place other than New York City, your sense of how far your budget will go can be quite unrealistic, right? So it's helping them understand that on the front end, not while you're trying to figure things out. It's getting clarity on a strategy, right? So people say, oh, I want Kensington and St. John's Wood, but perhaps their budget isn't that. So it's also being able to help them understand what those alternative options might be. Also, what is the most important things, right? Because we can all have a list as long as our arm. But if you can have those conversations on the front end and really help people get clear on what's important to them and how you're going to proceed with the strategy, that really helps them as you journey along. Also, it means identifying those properties in a way that's clear and concise and helpful. So something we're really proud of is the program we've set up to actually share the listings with them and invite our clients to give us feedback before we even start going out with them to preview. It's navigating the viewing days, right? And one of the things, again, we're so proud of is how efficient we've made that process. And so it's everything from really getting clear on the appointments, who we'll be meeting, and moving our clients around so that it's really efficient.
A couple of questions that estate agents will bring up, and I'd like you to answer these if you don't mind. The first one is that I'm an estate agent. There's a conflict of interest if I'm both selling a house and working for someone who wants to buy it. How would that all work?
Well, actually, I would think that's actually the situation we're in most of the time, isn't it? Is that you're selling a property and you're working with somebody who is approaching you for that listing. So that, to me, is where the conflict of interest is. If beyond that, you now are representing that buyer to go out, then I think you make it clear if they're paying your fee, there shouldn't be a conflict of interest because you're looking out for their best interest. And I think some buyers might worry that, well, you get paid a commission, so the higher I can spend, the better off it is for you, right?
But what if the buyer wants to buy something off you as an estate agent?
Oh, so we would always make it clear. If you happen to be buying one of our listings, we would get paid from the sale side. So that property would get excluded.
So you would, yeah. So if they decided you couldn't act on their
behalf,
so there's no conflict of interest.
There's no conflict. It's something in our portfolio.
Okay. What about how? I don't want to know figures, but how does the payment work?
So we will have a success fee upon completion, But ahead of that, to start working with us, we do charge a non-refundable retainer that goes towards that success fee. And that's merely to make sure we're working with serious buyers who are, really have the time frame in mind that we're going to be working together.
So let's imagine that I'm not in central London where the numbers are in the millions, but let's just say I was in the home counties and I was looking to buy a property of around, say, £1 million. What would you say would be a fair ballpark figures as a buyer agent, what they could charge? Not what you would charge, but what could be gained from being a buyer agent?
Well, I feel so strongly the value we bring to our clients, but I would say anywhere from 1.5% to 2.5%.
And how much of that is upfront and how much of it is on the success?
Again, that's dependent on you, but somewhere between £1,000 and a couple £1,000 should be.
So you basically say, I will represent you. I will charge you 1.5% to 2.5% when you buy a property and it exchanges and completes. However, I will expect £1,000, £2,000, whatever, upfront as non-refundable to show that you're serious.
Right.
And that comes off the 1.5 to
Exactly.
2. Do you have people who say, well, I don't want to pay that 1.5, that couple of grand up front? Or is that sorts it out?
Perhaps in the beginning, and you might have started it, started my career doing that. But we're so clear on and confident in terms of the value we bring. Then we say, well, really, that's not our client. And I think you need to also really own up to the service you're delivering. So if somebody's not willing to make that initial investment, but they're somehow willing to pay you $20,000 on the back end, but not $2,000 up front, how serious are they?
It's all about making I know one person can't change everything, but how would you go about marketing if I was in a suburban town of, say, Kingston upon Thames or Guildford or somewhere around there, so I'm not in central London, how would you go about starting that service?
Well, I think it's really, do you love where you live and do you feel like there's something to really celebrate about it? So I think the communication is, and our tagline is selling London beautifully. Like, what is it that you're celebrating about that community, that area? And are you talking about it in a day in and day out basis, right? Because if you can really establish yourself as that local expert, which many estate agents are, then a buyer you're creating that confidence in a buyer that you might be the person to work with.
So you're not actually talking, you're not setting up saying, hi, we're a buyer agency. What you're saying is become part of the community, synonymous with the community, so people get to know, like, and trust you, and then offer the service.
There you go.
There you go.
Our bigger community just happens to be London, but yes, in essence, you're celebrating and showing off London and what makes it appealing. And then you're attracting that person that recognizes your expertise in the market.
So instead of saying, hi, so you build up that persona in the community, and then instead of saying, hi, I'm an estate agent, I want to sell your house, you obviously give those messages out, but you also say, if you're looking to buy in this area, I'm here for you as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And here's why, if you're a buyer, you might think about these things. So you can drop that message in, right? If you're a buyer and not familiar with this area, if you're a buyer and trying to figure out the best schools or where to live relative to the best schools, we can help, right? So you kind of create the conversation that way.
And this isn't, I know you're part of the Keller Williams stable in London. This isn't just a Keller Williams thing. Any agent could do this, can't they?
Absolutely, any agent could.
So what would your final message be to any UK estate agents thinking of becoming a buyer agent?
I think there's a real opportunity here, and I think the more and more we start serving buyers at a high level, because I think what happens is in an estate agency, buyers often have a bad taste in their mouth at the end of an experience. But what would you expect when that estate agent wasn't really representing you? Right? And so if people fundamentally understand that there's an opportunity to look after buyers, I think, it could be a really exciting space for more agents.
Thank you for your time today.
It's a pleasure.